Okay, good Tag. Um, there are those who have a custom on Motzei Shabbos to sing the song Al Tira Avdi Yaakov. Do not be afraid, my servant Yaakov, because on Shabbos we are endowed with a extra neshama, extra soul, and with this extra soul, we're able to serve Hashem with a devotion beyond logic and reason. And on Shabbos we're given the name Yisrael. Jewish people are called by two names. And on Shabbos, the name of the Jewish people is Yisrael because that higher consciousness of the neshama is revealed. But during the week, the name of the Jewish people is Yaakov. Yaakov means to be conniving because a Jew is meant to engage with the physical world. And yet, although we're engaging with the physical world, we're supposed to use the physical things in our life for a higher and deeper purpose. So on Shabbos, when the neshama is more revealed and we feel more of a devotion to Hashem beyond logic and reason, like we say in Kiddush, v'rotza banu, which literally means Hashem desires us, but it also means that our desire to be close to Hashem beyond logic and reason is banu. We feel it within us. That we always have that part of the soul in us, but on Shabbos it's more pronounced, more revealed, it's more tangible. And during the week, that part of the neshama comes hidden, and instead we have to work with things in the world and try to elevate them. So while on Shabbos we're in this state of elevated consciousness, our physical food that we eat is a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to eat the food on Shabbos. But during the week, in order for it to have a spiritual content, we have to use it. We have to have the right kavanah, the right intent. And that's why we're called conniving, because externally the food brings us down. If externally the food is just physical, the food, all the material things in our life, and we have to look beneath the surface. And just like when someone who is a spy has to dress in the clothing of the country he is a spy in and follow the customs of the country and learn the language of the country. So to a Jew during the week is meant to engage with the physical world in a very physical way, and yet to have a whole different thing in mind, that he's engaging the physical world, but his intent is to serve Hashem and to use the physical things in his life for Hashem's intent. So on that note, I wanted to share a story that I heard from Rabbi Yankee Reichik. I don't think I shared the story with you yet. Unless David Isser remembers it, then it's a new story. The story about Alter Rebbe, David. I shared that story about Alter Rebbe.
I don't know.
Okay. All right.
Thinking.
So I guess the Rebbe was honored to recite the verses of Alter Rebbe on Simchas Torah, and people would have the merit of paying for the schus of the Rebbe reciting these verses. And Rabbi Reichik, Senior, Olav Shalom, the Rebbe's first emissary to West Coast, Shmuel Reichik, he would go around and he would inspire people to dedicate funds to be given to the Rebbe's institutions in this chus, to have the merit of the Rebbe saying these verses. And there was a Jew in L.A. Named Mr. Moskowitz, and he was approached by Rabbi Reichik to give a donation. And before Rabbi Reichik arrived at his home, he got a phone call from the famous philanthropist Rabbi Weissel Vashol. Rabbi says, "This is how you give money to the Rebbe. You don't give the Rebbe an amount. You just give the Rebbe a blank check, and the Rebbe will fill the blank check with whatever the Rebbe sees fit." So, okay, that's how they do it. That's how they do it. And he sends a blank check with Rabbi Reichik to be given to the Rebbe. But lo and behold, a few weeks later, gets a phone call from the bank. It's a $4,000 check. And in those days, I think it was in the early 60s, it's a lot of money, especially for him. And the bank was asking him if he's going to honor the check. He didn't know what he should do because he didn't think the Rebbe was going to write such a big amount. He just left it blank for the Rebbe to fill in whatever the Rebbe would want, but that was a lot of money. So he called up his cousin, a Mr. Lefkowitz, whose son is a prominent member of the Chabad community in Muncie, and he said to him, "What do I do?" They said to him, "Listen, you gotta pay this check because these Chabad guys, they're crazy. If you're not gonna pay this check, they're going to hound you for that money. You want to make sure this check gets honored." That's what he said. I don't know what brought that comment on, but that's what he said. He was living then in Williamsburg, and he was advising his cousin in Los Angeles, and so he agreed to honor the check. And right afterwards, miraculously, an investment that this man had, that he had one number in mind that would be magnificent if this investment renders this amount of profit, but it rendered an additional $40,000 of profit beyond what he had thought it would make. So it was 10 times the amount that the Rebbe had instructed to write on this check. So a Jew engages in the physical, and Hashem blesses us in whatever we're doing to be far more successful than we would have thought possible. Because whenever you make a decision to give tzedakah, Hashem opens up a channel. Not only that you should be able to fulfill your pledge, but that you should make 10 times as much as you give to tzedakah. As the Torah says, Aser b'shul t'shes asher, give 10% of your money to tzedakah in order that you should become wealthy. There's actually someone who was in the Rebbe's room once, and the Rebbe asked him if he has a custom of giving 10% of his earnings to charity, and the guy said that he doesn't. And so the Rebbe took out a Gemara, and the Rebbe said that if you were to give 10% of your earnings to tzedakah, so then the Rebbe showed him the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan says, give 10% to be wealthy. And the Rebbe said, I could call Rabbi Yochanan, I could ask Rabbi Yochanan, something like that. I don't know the exact words the Rebbe said, but Rabbi Yochanan's statement would help you. That he says, if you give 10%, you'll be wealthy. So be careful to do this in the future. And there's a similar teaching of the previous Rebbe, who said that whenever a Jew makes a decision, that decision itself opens up a channel of parnasa. And that's not just regarding the mitzvah of tzedakah. Whenever a Jew makes a decision to do something, Hashem causes that thing that you made a decision to do to come to fruition. There's a teaching of the Sifri, a good thought, Hashem connects to an action. So the Sifri explains, when a Jew has a good thought, a good decision, he wants to do something, so mitzarf l'maisa, Hashem causes that good thought, Hashem causes events to happen in the world, that this good decision that you made should come to fruition. It starts with you deciding in your mind, in your heart, that something you want to do, that you know is a good thing to do, and you decide, you said this to Hashem, of course not with a vow, just bli neder, but that decision itself opens a pipeline, and that's something to bear in mind, as Hashem tells us, do not be afraid, my servant Yaakov, do not be afraid of engaging with the physical world as we end Shabbos, because there's a divine mission you have, and Hashem empowers us, wherever we go, whatever we're doing, to fulfill it. So this week, on Friday, is the yahrzeit of the Alter Rebbe. So I'm going to share a story of the Alter Rebbe that Rabbi Mendel Glukovsky, Rebbe's emissary to Rehovot, shared. I don't know the source of the story, just I know that he shared the story. And a fascinating story. Stories like this. There was a chassid of the Alter Rebbe who would travel around the whole week doing business. And on Shabbos, he would come home, and throughout the week, he would set on his way and peddle his wares. And when he was in the audience once with the Alter Rebbe, he shared with the Alter Rebbe his custom. He shared how every week, that's what he would do. He would sell things and buy things, and he would arrive at home for Shabbos. So the Alter Rebbe said to him that it's worthwhile that whenever you go out on Sunday to do your business, whenever you leave your home, you should take with you 3 Challas. Take 3 Challas with you. Okay? He wasn't going to question the Alter Rebbe's instruction as a good chassid, but peculiar instruction. 3 Challas. Why 3 Challas? So he goes out and he takes his 3 Challas with him, and doesn't know what the purpose of this is. But one week, it's Friday, and he's traveling, and his horses took a turn off the road. He missed something, he saw something, he thought something. He's lost. He's lost, and Shabbos is approaching, and he's trying to find a place to go. And he thought it was fortunate. He sees a home, and he knocks on the door. Non-Jewish man opens the door, and he says to him, "What would you like?" He says, "I'm looking for a place to stay. Looking for a place to stay." Sure, you stay by my house. He comes in the house, and as soon as he comes in the house, the door gets locked from the outside, and he sees in the room is a very large dog. And he starts to open the door, and the guy who will let him in says to him, "In this room you go in this room you do not go out." And he realizes that this dog is an attack dog, and his fate is God forbid these are his last moments. So it's Friday night, and the dog is sitting in the corner, just not doing anything, and he's very frightened. He knows that this is serious business, and he starts to daven Shemona Esrei, daven Shabbos davening with all his heart and soul, with tears, knowing this is probably his last tefillah until the dog gets hungry and attacks him. He finishes davening, the dog's still sitting in the corner, and he makes kiddush. Makes kiddush on challah. If you can't make kiddush on wine, you make kiddush on challah. Makes kiddush on the challah, and as soon as he makes a hamaitzi on the challah, the dog jumps up, and the dog starts tugging at him, and he gets so scared, like what does this mean? Then he realizes the dog just wants some challah, gives the dog some challah. The dog takes the challah, goes back into its corner, like nothing happened. He can't sleep the whole night. He's so worried this dog's gonna attack him. He knows why he's in this room. He knows what this guy's planning to do. The guy's planning to take all of his money and let this dog kill him. And he's frightened. He can't sleep the whole night. Next morning, he starts davening, the morning davening, Shachris of Shabbos, finishes Shachris, and he goes to make Kiddush again on the challah. And again, the dog suddenly, the whole night, the dog is quiet. The dog jumps up, wants challah, and he gives the dog a challah. And the same exact thing happens for Shalosh Chodesh, for the third meal of Shabbos. When he makes a moitzi for the third meal of Shabbos, the dog again jumps up, he gives the dog the challah, and the dog goes back to the corner. After Shabbos, the door opens. The non-Jewish man would let him in, the thief, opens the door with a pail, with a shovel. The guy expected to see a dead man, and he can't believe this guy's alive. So he tells the dog, "Sick him, go get him." Dog doesn't do anything. And the chassid realizes this is his chance. And he tells the dog, "Sick him." And the dog immediately pounces on this guy and does short work of this guy. But then the dog, like, hints to the guy, to the chassid, to come with him. And the chassid follows the dog. And the dog shows the chassid where this man had buried a chest of valuables that he had stolen from all of his guests. And the chassid takes the valuables and he goes back home, and eventually he comes to the Alter Rebbe. He tells the Alter Rebbe the whole story. I forgot to mention that the dog also showed the chassid where the right road is, and as soon as the chassid was on the right road, the dog turned over and died. So the chassid shared this whole story with the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe said that this dog had in it a incarnation, a Gilgul, of a Jew who would not be careful to make Kiddush before eating on Shabbos. And therefore, he had to be incarnated in this dog to hear Kiddush 3 times. That's what the chassid, that's what Alter Rebbe said. So once the dog heard Kiddush on night and Kiddush by day, and especially the Kiddush that this chassid made with all his heart and thinking this is the last Kiddush he's making in his life, so that Kiddush was a tikkun, was a rectification for this guy's soul, this chassid's, for this man's soul who was reincarnated in the dog, and then the dog's able to die. And in reward for you making the Kiddush, and rectifying the soul of this man who was reincarnated in the dog therefore brought you to this treasures as a reward. And this man, this chassid, became very wealthy as a result of this encounter with this dog. I want to share one more story. There was a chassid Alter Rebbe whose name was Rabbi Isaac Hamler. Rabbi Isaac Hamler was a great genius, and the Alter Rebbe, before he came to lead the community in Vitebsk, he was first a rav in a city called Astrovna near Vitebsk, and when the Alter Rebbe sent him to be a rav there in Vitebsk, the Alter Rebbe asked him 3 questions. And after he asked him 3 questions, the Alter Rebbe also told him the answer to these 3 questions. And he told him the halachic ruling in these 3 questions. He asked 3 questions. He told him this is the halachic ruling in these 3 areas. And later, this Rabbi Isaac Homer arrives in Vitebsk, which he served there again for 60 years in Vitebsk. And the first question that the Alter Rebbe told him comes up. And 2 weeks later, the second question that the Alter Rebbe told him comes up. And he thought that shortly afterwards, the third question will come up, and that'll be in the end of it. But he knew for one thing for sure, he knew one thing was clear, he would not pass away until the third question would come up. So 60 years go by. And on Friday, this butcher comes in, and this butcher brings a reya. A butcher brings the lungs of a cow, and the question if the lungs are kosher. Now, because of Isaac was already older, so he had appointed these 3 prominent sages to address complicated halachic questions, and he would govern the discussion, but he wanted to make sure that he got everything right in his older years. So he had these 3 rabbis to serve as a bezdin, and so he wouldn't answer the questions himself. They would answer the questions. So they checked the lung, and they said the lung is not kosher. And he heard this, comes out of his room, and he checks it, and he says it's kosher. Now the rabbis start looking at each other, and they're thinking, they start whispering to each other, he's over bottle. Over bottle means he's already senile. He doesn't know what he's saying. And he didn't get insulted by what they said. And he spoke very sternly to the butcher. And he says, tell me the truth, what happened with this lung? So the butcher admitted that he wanted, for whatever reason, to sabotage this lung. And he had a reason why he wanted to sabotage it, whatever, he had some kind of deal, and he wanted to sabotage this lung and make it not kosher. And so he made another hole in the lung in order to be sure that it wasn't kosher. So the judges, the other rabbis were okay, fine, great, but they were like so surprised. And they asked him, what does this mean? And he didn't answer them. He said, please call the Chevra Kadisha. Please call the mortuary. And they were completely shocked because he was completely healthy. And he said again, please call the Chevra Kadisha. Chevra Kadisha come, and he told them what they should do, how they should take care of his body. And he says, please do not make any delay. He wanted to be buried before Shabbos. So they also couldn't understand what he's talking about. He looks so healthy. But he said it to them again, they should listen to what he's telling them. And as he's speaking to them, he lied down and he passed away. This story was told by Rabbi Yitzchak ben Reb Lema Minkowitz from Nevel. That's his version of the story. There is another. This story was shared by Rabbi Perlov, who heard the story from Rabbi Yitzchak Minkowitz. Rabbi Perlov said he also heard another version of the story. I'll share the other version as well. The Alter Rebbe, when he sent Rabbi Zakomler to Vitebsk, and he asked him a question about the laws of a reya, laws of a lung, which becomes non kosher, and he asked him, what would you rule in the following situation? And he told Alter Rebbe, it's a clear in the Sifsei Koyin what the halacha is. And the Alter Rebbe took a Shulchan Aruch, and he showed him the same thing that he thought was saying that it's not kosher. And the Alter Rebbe showed him that this exact thing that he thinks is the source why it's not kosher is actually the source why it is kosher. So at the end of 60 years, this question comes up, and didn't come up. No, the question wasn't asked of him. The question was asked of another rabbi. Someone asked this question to another rabbi. Other rabbi said it wasn't kosher. And something happened, and the questioner somehow met Rabbi Isaac Humler, and he brought him this question. And so he said it's kosher. But he says, when I went to the rabbi says not kosher. You're not really supposed to go. You're not supposed to go shopping. Call one rabbi and ask another rabbi. But this is what actually ended up happening. He actually did speak to this other rabbi, and he wasn't planning to ask him the question. But Rabbi Zakomber said, "No, it's kosher. Call over the other rabbi." So when the other rabbi heard of this, the elderly Rav for 60 years says it's kosher. He wasn't just elderly; he was also very wise. He couldn't believe it, and he immediately came to Rabbi Zakomber, and he asked him, "How you could say it's kosher? This Sifsei Kohen says it's not kosher." So Rabbi Zakomber took the Shulchan Aruch, and he took the Sifsei Kohen, and he showed this Rav that the explanation of Sifsei Kohen, how the Alter Rebbe explained it. And the other rabbi, he held on to Rabbi Isaac's beard, and he said to him, "I swear." I'm sorry. He held on to his own beard. He said, "I swear by my beard and my payas that this is not your own explanation. Like, this is such a fascinating explanation. It couldn't be that you invented this explanation." So Isaac Hamler said, "Indeed, this is what I heard from the Alter Rebbe, and that's who you heard this teaching from the Sifsei Kohen." So the point is that the Alter Rebbe gave this chassid, in either version of the story, he gave him an instruction that wasn't necessary for 60 years, and this chassid held on to it for 60 years, knowing these words of the Rebbe, they for sure have a relevance to me in my life. I just have to wait and see what that relevance is. But the Rebbe told us to me, it's for sure that these words will have an impact. I just need to hold on to them and cherish them and remember them, because these words were told to me by the Rebbe. So thinking about this now, as we are entering the Chumash of Shemais, the Chumash of Exodus, the Chumash of the redemption, the Chumash of the Mashiach, which the redemption from Egypt is a catalyst and is a preparation, and it's the time when Hashem opened the channel for all future redemptions, including the redemption of the coming Mashiach, and especially now when we really need Mashiach, considering all that's going on right now. So we have to strengthen our emunah in the Rebbe's words that Higias man golaschem, the time for redemption has arrived, and we know those words will actually be fulfilled in a very literal way. The Alter Rebbe actually once said it this way. The Alter Rebbe said, the shoemaker is going to be measuring someone's feet for shoes, and while he's measuring his feet, Mashiach is going to come. In other words, that's what the Alter Rebbe is conveying with that statement, I think, is that Mashiach is not going to come when, like, this earth-shattering event is going to happen, that earth-shattering event is going to happen, and then suddenly and then all these things are going to happen, and then another thing's going to happen, and then Mashiach's going to come. A lot of things have happened. Signs of Mashiach's coming have already happened. But like in the story of Isaac Humler, that he just suddenly passed away. It was just that was a time for it to happen, and he suddenly passed. He knew he was going to pass away as soon as these words that Alter Rebbe were fulfilled. Similar way, the words of the Rebbe will be fulfilled suddenly. It's not going to be like, oh, this process is going to happen, that process is going to happen. Hashem is waiting for the various processes to happen, and then Mashiach is going to come. Shofar is going to be blown, and in an instant we're going to be in Yerushalayim, and we're going to see Avram and Yitzchak and Yaakov and Sarah, Rivka, Rachel and Leah, and all the tzaddikim of all generations, and the Alter Rebbe himself and all the Rebbeim. It's going to happen immediately while the shoemaker is measuring the feet of the guy for shoes, while you're at a traffic light in Teaneck, while you're in the middle of getting the right flavor for your son's milkshake. That's when Mashiach is going to come, and let's get ready. So it's about to happen. L'chaim, l'chaim, a good tavach, a freilich